Hey everyone, and welcome to Secure AF, the podcast about all things cybersecurity. I'm your host, Teddy Underkoffler. Today I am joined with co-host Donovan Farrow.
What's up, superheroes?
As well as two very special guests, Gharrett and Wade.
How's it going? How are you?
So today we're going to talk just a little bit about, SOC analysts, building SOCs, all sorts of different conversation pieces around a SOC. But before we get into that, Gharrett, Wade, can I have you guys tell everyone a little bit about who you are?
Yeah, I'm Wade VanDeburgh. I'm a senior IT security engineer at a local company called Paycom. We do all kinds of cool stuff there, security related. Been there since the beginning of what we've built into a large security organization today. So happy to come share some thoughts about it.
Yeah. And I'm Gharrett Workun, also part of the IT security department, been an incident response engineer, a lot of different roles there over the course of almost 10 years at Paycom, and watched it grow into the beast that it is as far as IT-wise. Seen around 12, 15 IT employees turn into almost 500 now, so really seeing just kind of the growth and sprawl and in the creation of some of these departments like the SOC, like other IT security teams. So been a part of some SANS training and some other things, of course. Who really cares? Just a certificate. So that's why we're here, and we're super glad to be here.
Also really good stuff to hang on the fridge when you pass that really expensive
Yes.
test.
It's cool. It makes mom proud.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Awesome. Well, if y'all want, we can go ahead and get started. I know you mentioned you guys had been there pretty much since the start of the SOC, so I'm not sure if that's where you wanted to start, but the floor is all yours.
Yeah, so we talked about building the SOC out. Originally, when I joined the team, I was employee 5 or 6 in IT security, and so that Gharrett was there. There was a couple other people there, but we really had everyone does everything kind of mentality. And as we grew as an organization, that became extremely overwhelming, right? One day I was working on a firewall policy, the next I was doing an incident response case. So it was something that wasn't sustainable. So we turned and looked to what are our challenges and how do we accomplish that, and how do we grow the team so that we can be successful moving forward. And what it's turned into today is a group of almost 40 individuals in security operations. So we went from having 9 to 5 and you'd get a call at 7 p.m. on your way home to handle something, to now we have 24/7 coverage by design, and kind of moved into specialized roles where people are excited about what they do and they get to do the things that are cool to them.
But yeah, the most influential book, and I'll probably bring it up several times over the course of this and my entire life, but If You Give a Mouse a Cookie, which for those that don't know, the premise of the book is if you give a mouse a cookie, well, obviously he's going to want a glass of milk, and it just goes on and on and on about, cool, you gave me something, you proved some worth. So for us at work, being able to prove, oh, you did, your task at hand, you've kept us secure so far. Well, what else can you do? Was definitely the premise that's kind of carried us to where we are today. So it's like, cool, you're answering alerts and responding to things. Well, what about 24/7 for forever and every holiday and whatnot? So that turned into, sure, we'll do whatever the company needs. So it's definitely some of the premise of why we built the SOC as well. It wasn't just out of necessity for what we think we needed, but it was a company missive of keep doing good by rewarding us with more responsibility.
Right, and I think that's actually really refreshing to hear. I hear a lot of people in big corporations, they do more work and they just do more work. There's nothing enticement. I think a lot of companies miss out on that is, hey, if your employee wants to do better and stronger, you should probably let them do that. You can mostly get out of their way and they'll take care of you no matter what you want. So that's great to hear. That's good culture. So
yeah. For sure. So like I said, that began, a quest of us then having the ability to plan a SOC. So it wasn't so much that we had inherited one or it just kind of spawned up and we're like, oh my gosh, how'd you get here?
Right.
We actually had time to say, okay, we want to start with 3 employees that are going to, within a few months, start a 24/7, DuPont schedule or whatever we kind of decided on. What do we want that to look like? What systems do we have that make sense for that? What tasks do they want to have? And then really what culture do we want to have with that SOC, because we, from reading, from not that I've been at a lot of businesses in life, but from research and others that had been at SOCs and stuff, they wanted to avoid the typical cliches that I hate of alert fatigue and other dumb things that really can be avoidable, but you get yourself, I think, in a rut with that, and maybe IT as a whole, I can't really speak for it, but for security for sure, that you can say these buzzwords and just believe it without ever trying to think, can I do anything to course correct that? So for us, we knew ahead of time that we wanted to avoid that by being smart with our SIM or smart with our alerts, to do the tuning ahead of time, to avoid the perpetual need to just keep buying new tech to the SOAR tools and stuff to respond. Well, what if we just spend the time ahead of time making the alerts as best as possible? Again, not that they're perfect, but really be intentional about what we're giving them to work so that they have the best foot forward, the best foundation, and of course things went awry. But that, at least in the building phase, was really nice that we could be a part of that, take a step back and say, well, what do we want them to do? Because again, cool that the company wants us to succeed, really appreciate that, but really it was nice that the world was our oyster as far as, well, what all do we want them to do and cover, and we're able to kind of control that at the first best as possible.
Yeah, we kind of took that and talked to some other individuals in the industry and said, well, what does your SOC look like? And a lot of times what we heard was, well, they just they work alerts, and that sounded awful to me. I don't know if that's your dream, but if I'm a pull the lever and push the button kind of guy, I'm out. That does not interest me, and I knew that the people that we wanted to be involved in what we do in security are not those types of people. So it was, how do we keep the people we want to continue to work at our organization excited about their job, and what path does that look like, and what does their day job look like? And so it was, Gharrett talks about how we did alert tuning and things like that, but the other side of it was, okay, their job ultimately is to look at alerts, but it's throw some excitement at them too. You can't just okay, click the box, yep, that was an alert, it was a false positive, or it was a true positive, whatever it was. But you gotta, like Gharrett said, give the mouse a cookie every once in a while. You gotta entice them, have some fun in it, and we definitely strive to do that. And I think we can talk a little bit more about that. It's a little rough because we a little bit more about how we designed it was, our SOC is sort of tier 1, tier 2, and then we have an incident response escalation team, and then we have a threat intelligence team, a network security team, endpoint security team, and an application security group, and vulnerability management outside of our GRC group. So we kind of have specialized in different roles so that we can have SMEs, but the SOC is the heart of that, and they get to be involved in most everything that we do.
Do they kind of follow that incident all the way up? Or
they do, and we made sure that was a part of it. So if they get to a point where they're stuck or they don't know, they don't just get ripped out of that picture. They get to come along with the person that's going to help them, and they get to be a part of that incident call or that management meeting that needs to be talked about. That person gets to be along for the whole ride, because I think there's a lot of value in being there and not just hearing about it. Oh, well, I gave it to Gharrett and Gharrett handled it. I learned from Gharrett every time that I had to go talk to him about something.
And that's actually an awesome strategy, because that adds ownership. I'm going to make sure this gets done. I'm going to learn something all the way up, and I think that was something that even we have our own, is ownership all the way up, because technicians, they really just want to learn. They just really want to learn. They don't want to pass the ticket up, to be honest. And if they do, there's a lot of help desks you can go work on and do that. Just pass it up. But that doesn't, that's not, for me, even working at a help desk many years ago, when there were dinosaurs and stuff back in IT. That was it, and it was just almost like that wasn't a career, and it doesn't even make the team smarter or better. And the communication, it's always finger pointing, and it could be really toxic. So hearing that's great.
Yeah, no, I think that's fantastic that y'all are kind of taking that initiative on trying to make sure that the team is engaged and giving them those learning opportunities to grow. In that kind of aspect, but a little bit dissimilar, how do you find people for these roles, and how do you get them engaged? Because when people, I assume, see SOC analyst, they probably assume that it's just going to be, like y'all said, checking alerts, clicking boxes, and just doing that day in and day out.
Yeah.
I'll let Garrett take that, but I want to throw out that we have an awesome internship program every year. So we have last year, I think it was 10 or 12 security interns across the
Oh, wow.
different teams, and they got to see what we do and how we do it and work alongside our real employees. And so we didn't hide anything from them. And a lot of our interns turn out to want to work for us because of what we do and how we do it.
Nice.
Yeah,
That's
they
awesome.
finally get enough coffee to us that we're like, okay, you can do some work, I guess, since you're here. But
That's right.
But yeah, to answer your question, I mean, and that was part of the foundational too, is that we knew, and some of it is just kind of company culture there that we love or really encourage the straight out of college, the young talent. We want to be able to foster and grow them. So we knew that with the SOC that despite that being a typical career that has a lot of low experience expectations but high resume scary job application needs, 10 plus years of experience, but it's an intro role. So we knew that was going to be, especially in Oklahoma. I know we're not tech capital of the world, we're going to get there, but there's hard to find people to work in an in-person company that has all those pedigree and can fit that bill. So we were totally fine with hiring kind of the straight out of college aspect, have a little bit of tech background, maybe they had some desktop help and stuff, but we may even pull from some of our first analysts were actually just other IT positions that had no security background. They were desktop analysts, they were tech analysts that just had that typical hunger, that excitement, that general desire to do something else. So yeah, as far as talent, we knew we were going to start with some ground floor, but at least we wanted to make sure that they all had kind of that general excitement of wanting to learn and wanting to help us encourage that culture that we were trying to build of, we don't want to just throw stuff over the fence. We don't want to just be ticket crunchers. We want to actually train and do more with you. So I think part of that, and as we continue to still build, we're definitely not perfect by any means, but want to give them the opportunity to see both the SOC as a growth potential to move up in levels, to really own that whole process. But because we encourage them to work alongside other groups, to see what incident response does, to see what network security does, if we have any turnover at all, really, it's because we've promoted them to other roles within IT security. So we want them to foster that excitement. If they're past what they see as the cybersecurity whole of a SOC and they want to move on to other stuff, we want to encourage that growth. And I think that's been helpful in the hiring process, because it's like they can see easily once they get there, they're already going to see us because we sit physically located beside them. So they're not just in a room by themselves that are just like, well, security's just going to give me work today. I'm going to throw it over the fence to somebody I don't know.
Right.
They can actually see, me. They're like, Gharrett, I need your help on this thing. And I'm like, I'll get there eventually. But they can see that these are the teams that they could be a part of one day too, and they can, not that we haven't had a SOC for more than about 3-4 years now or so, but we already have the hall of legends of people that have been in a SOC before, and it's like, oh, they're over there, they're a team lead now, or they're the team lead of the SOC, they started here. So there's a lot of growth potential there that from the onset we want to encourage. So it's not like you are here for an undisclosed amount of time, please don't leave.
Yeah.
And it was less so that we wanted to build it to where you had to leave too. If you want to stay there and you love what you do, that's more than awesome for you to do that. But we wanted to give the opportunity. Yeah. And when we, like Gharrett was talking, we were talking about new hires, it was less so about what skills you have, but what skills you were interested in and what, where's the sparkle in your eye when you want to talk about security? Because some people want to go to security because they think it's, they're going to be a millionaire because they, in reality, it's not really that true. But if you love your job, it's less work, right? So
yeah, no, and that's a good point. I always laugh. Everyone's like, so Donovan, you were getting in security because make some more money. I was like, no, I just wanted to learn more. Yeah. And it was like back in the day before security really existed, everyone wanted to be a network guy because they made the most money, right? Yeah. So you're always shooting for that, but you get to a point in your career, and I think even the world's changed, is trust me, money's great until you hate your job to death, and then it doesn't matter. And again, I could say that from experience. Even me risking everything just to start this company, I was incident response manager for North America, blah blah blah, a lot of money. It was great. I hated everything. It was awful. It was awful. It was a great title, it was great money, but I had no life. and I wasn't able to be creative, and I was about to ruin the thing that I was always excited about, which was technology, which was security, and even my background. If people don't know this, I literally started at a very small computer repair shop in a small town called Anadarko of 7,000 people.
Yeah. Big city.
Yeah.
Yes, the big city. I was getting paid $20 to put computers together, smoking cash, man. Like, anyway, yeah. So I started there. So going from that to building and security, and I would even just kind of lean this, probably preaching the choir here, is it's okay to come from desktop support and help desk. Honestly, it's awesome because you're gonna have way more technology and know about things. I feel like a lot of people jump to security and they're like, Donovan, I want to be a pen tester. I'm like, oh, man, don't we all though?
Put your hoodie up.
Yeah.
Put your hood up.
Yeah, it just, I get it. We got to get there. But I'll tell you, the greatest security people that we have hired, and you guys speak to this, I'd like to get your opinion, is people that come from help desk, desktop support, networking. My gosh, when you get networking, you have to throw those guys into security, having that background. Man, you're talking light years. So that's been very successful for us. How do you guys? I guess, do you guys recruit people that don't have security? Like, I'm a network guy, and we'd like to bring them security.
Yeah,
Can
absolutely.
you kind of speak into that for people maybe looking for a place to grow in security, but they're kind of maybe nervous about it?
Yeah, I mean, depending on your skill set, I mean, there's always value in what you've done in the past, right? Whether if you were a locksmith before you became an IT guy, there's some value there too. Sometimes the server rack won't open, and you got to pick out, some screwdrivers. Who knows? But networking is a valuable skill. That translates very handsomely into network security, right? Talking about how you do routing and switching maybe isn't as valuable, but hey, I know how that feature works on this network device or that switch or whatever, and what that means from a security standpoint is invaluable, because like not having that background, you're kind of looking at white papers and you've never like done it. And so when you look at someone with that type of role, it makes sense, because now you're thinking about things like firewalls and network segmentation, because it's sort of what you did in the past, but you're changing your focus point a little bit. Desktop support is a fantastic way to get into endpoint security or system security, right? Yeah. Because I know how Exchange works. I know what the pain points of it are. So then you take that and you go, well, what are the attackers going to hit? Where are the keys, and how do I secure those? And not having a background in those kind of sets you a little bit back, but it's not something you couldn't learn if you were straight out of college. It's just a little different pathway to get there, right? Yeah. So,
and here's what'll probably never get me hired anywhere else. This is what I'm divisive on, but security, if you are just a pure security guy without some of that as a background, I know there's careers in it, and it's ironic that we're here just talking about it, but you can get pretty far by just talking about security, right? You can float job to job by just preaching to a business that you've got great plans, you can architect something to save the world, you've used all this different software, and then when actual hands-on security comes, boom, you're going to find a new job, because they're going to find you out. I don't know how to actually do anything. I'm just going to keep talking about it. So that's my worry sometimes with somebody who just has a full only security background, and again, I know we're in security, so it's weird, but just so that you can just get by with just being a person who is almost a PR rep for security, right? Just like a journeyman for it. But actually, when it comes push to shove to do something, to investigate an alert or something, if you are avoiding that, then it's probably because you don't maybe have that hands-on background of, oh man, this alert involves some endpoint logs. I don't know anything about Windows because all I know how to do is read security blogs. But having that as a background, being not afraid to be a subject matter in that, and that's what's helped us too a little bit, is we've had some diversity in that. We've got some from help desk experience, from endpoint experience, so they're a little bit more clued in on maybe a EDR alert or something that has to do with endpoint type stuff, because they're like, oh man, I know Windows OS really well. I know the event log viewer. I can get in there and jump in there. We have some with some network background, so when it comes to firewall logs or something, they can get how it pieces together. They're able to grasp how the network, look at a network diagram and understand a little bit quicker.
Yeah, can read a packet capture.
Exactly. Yeah. Not be afraid to be like, I gotta do some Wiresharking. Okay, let's do this. So having an eclectic background absolutely is I think a preferred way to get into security, just to avoid that bias that maybe I just have, but it's really easy just to preach about it and not practice it.
Right, and I always say, like, the people that are usually talking the most about it, that are, I was like, that's my digital transformation people. Whatever that means, you just digital transformation, and then they just talk about it, but they don't have any hard skills.
No.
And that's why they even talk about a packet capture. Do you know how to do it? That's really good. Do you even know what you're looking at? That's even better than talking about it. And I feel like the world is, I would say in our world, really starting to peel that back when, companies were just throwing people into like, you do IT, right? We need you to fix this access database, and also can you change the firewall?
Yeah,
because you're IT, right? And it's I like the way it's coming. It's come to this. It's like a new, because security even back in the day, I feel like it was just even security. Now it's like you guys just named like 8 positions in security.
Yeah,
and I like how we're being we're so much better about it, even though we're still complaining about scanning and please patch your stuff. But the fact that we've almost made a new industry in IT outside of IT has been really interesting to see. And again, I'm wrapping it back to that is, you guys having interns come in. So if you're our intern and wanting to apply for these guys, I'm sure go to your website, I would assume.
Absolutely.
Yep. It's on our careers site.
Perfect. Okay. And so if you are really good at, like I said, a network, or you good at building computers, you should apply. Don't be afraid. Just because you're not doing security doesn't mean you can't be taught security, or maybe you haven't had the opportunity.
Absolutely.
Because labs or people even from mine, they want to do pen testing, and they weren't pen testers, but they've never been given the opportunity.
Yeah, and that's, I think, the double-edged sword of it, right? We've made so many specific silos of security. It's great. There's more careers for it. But now when you say to somebody, just go learn it, find something and learn it, and if they don't have some direction, they're going to take that freedom, which is great, but just learn. I think it may be chaotic. May not know where to start. And I think you're exactly right. Like, there's so many facets of it. You may want to be a specific network security engineer or SOC analyst or whatever, but pick one of those treks, right? Because that should be the beauty of having so many options. Just pick one and dive in, as opposed to be like, oh my gosh, I have to learn a little bit about everything before they'll accept me for who I am. But that's again, great. But
taking that back to kind of how we worked on the SOC, we took that and said, hey, we have every other week, if you want to shadow a person on this team or that team or whatever, go for it. They're right down it. Just scoot your chair over.
That's awesome.
And
that's great.
That has turned into some people finding out they really enjoy a different type of security role, and that has been awesome for us. We recently just hired a person onto our network security team that was a SOC analyst, because he was like, man, this firewall stuff is kind of neat.
Legit.
What's going on here? And he was asking questions, and we were talking about it, and he got excited about it. You could see the twinkle in his eye.
Yeah.
It was really cool. We've had some value in we've kind of been doing internal purple team type stuff, so blue team, red team, and the SOC analysts.
That's why it's called purple.
Yeah,
because of the colors.
You add the colors together. Now you're thinking about it. But our SOC analysts have saw us do that and was like, what's going on here, guys? So we talked to them about, hey, we're going to try this attack, and this is what this means. And do you remember that alert you got 3 weeks ago? This is how that is made or generated. And this is what that looks like from the other side of the window, right? And some people have found that exciting.
Well, that's been a good part too, is a small segue in the idea of just because we've been doing it for so long and we get people hired on and stuff, that assumption, I guess, is easy to take of, they know what to do. The SOC analyst gets trained on just the things they're supposed to without the reasoning behind it. So we actually enjoy the concept of kind of being able to revisit some of those just like basic stuff and let them figure it out. Because we've had I'm going to say joy of being able to wrestle with some of those kind of staple security things. We built the initial port scanning alerts or brute force attempt alerts, but just to say, here's a SOC analyst, we've been doing this for 4 or 6 years, here's the playbook, just do it, takes out a little bit of the fun, a little bit of the ownership like you talked about. So having we've got some guides that are kind of like half walk through threat hunt guides on how you would make your own brute force notable or your own kind of search for that kind of stuff. So they actually can have some of that ownership of like, oh, well, if none of this was made for me, this is where I would start on making that kind of thing, so that we don't just assume that you guys got it, no big deal, you'll figure it out, but actually give them, hey, this is how we had to learn it as well, so that they have that opportunity.
No, that's well said, because that's a good point, because when you do get into a corporation, sometimes they kind of just throw you in the middle, but we don't know how we got there. And it can be a little confusing when you need some intelligence to get to where you're investigating. And the purple purple team thing is great. We do some of those for clients. Is if you're a SOC person, or sometimes if it's not flashing red at you, you're not going to know. I tell you all the time, they're like, hey man, we have this devices, everything's running fine, we haven't been hacked. I'm like, well, if you were, would you know? And they're like, I don't know actually.
If it tells me on the screen that we're hacked, I think I know that we are.
Yes, and a lot of the big hacks that come from, and you guys know this probably firsthand, is it's usually some 0 day that doesn't quite have a signature yet, and it's the anomaly.
Yeah.
I always tell my team, anomalies first, the signature second.
Yeah.
Look for weird traffic. Look for something strange that shouldn't be happening. That's a great exercise. I'm glad to hear you guys do that.
Yeah.
I'm going to switch it a little bit here. So, what are the pain points? What was the hardest part? Because I think everyone's like, okay, this is good. It sounds successful.
Yeah.
How hard was it to
How
get there?
did we
Because
get there?
I'm aware of, not to your degree, man, that's a tall mountain to climb.
Yeah.
So, give us the list.
The first one, I was a 8 to 5 guy, and they were like this 24/7 thing, and I was like, oh no, this is gonna be a nightmare. What do we do? That was the first struggle. We had to figure out how to do that and how to make it fair, right?
Yeah.
So everyone takes shifts, but how do you make that fair? Because people got lives, and it was a complete shift of how we were doing things in the past, or not doing them at all, right?
Yeah.
That was tough. And then
So how did you make that fair?
great question.
There's that fancy, I mentioned it before, that DuPont schedule that much more people smarter than I am came up with, as far as a rotation of a standard 12-hour shift. You got a day and a night shift that ultimately ends up with basically the fourth week you kind of have completely off.
Yep.
So maybe a little bit of modification on that, but using that as an advertisement piece, especially for those straight out of college who are probably still sucking down energy drinks and playing World of Warcraft DLCs. They're like, dude, I can spend a whole week not at work
and don't have to take vacation.
and don't have to take vacation time off.
Yeah.
Done. So that
Awesome.
That was helpful. But I think some of it too is that culture. They just kind of came up along their own.
Does that still exist today?
It does.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it still exists today. But yeah, we're working together. We have enough people now. They're never alone. So even on a night shift, they've always got at least one or two other people with them. So a group of 2 or 3. But being able to just play off that culture of we're here. There's not a lot of other people in the building, kind of thing. Let's hang out while we do work, and then also giving them some tasks ahead of time. So that was a pain point at first. Was the standard business leadership of, okay, cool, you've got people at night. You're in bed. Are they working? So
Right. That was my next question.
Is it a great thing? Yeah.
I was like,
so,
who's the guy falling asleep and the other guy's picking his nose?
Exactly.
Like, what's happening? Do we really want to?
Yeah.
So let's get a video camera.
For sure, I've had some swaths of that and have had to learn just like anybody else have. But once again, it's being intentional about it, assuming that metrics aren't the ultimate fix, because they can be gamified and people can figure out how to cheat the game just like anything else. But keeping them back to it's the passion part, it's the interest part. If they have some projects to do or feel intertwined with the overall security goals, then they're going to spend their night times, which probably don't have as many alerts and stuff, phishing emails to look at because nobody's awake, but they can spend that time not just blind training, but like, hey, we need you to look at this particular alert that we made. It's going to be really noisy. Can you help us sift through some of the noise since you've got some time at night? And then us waking up in the morning being like, cool, they wrote us out like one of our kind of like test or like intermediate alerts. It's not quite production, but like give us some feedback from your guys' vantage point. So that keeps them interested, keeps them engaged, gives them something to do, gets it a little bit off of just the ticket crunching mentality, and that they're providing some support. So definitely the scheduling was the first, like, ooh, who's gonna do this?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's interesting. What would be, so once that kind of got kind of stable, what would you say, I guess, the challenge after that, or even challenges you face today from that?
Yeah, I'd say really just kind of probably the challenges from the growth become, I think, that concept of the telephone game, the gossip game, where one, as because Wade mentioned our kind of our organization structure, incident response is kind of the detection engineering. So they kind of, for lack of a better term, dump work upon the SOC. So we were the first ones that kind of taught the SOC what to do, and once they kind of got going, they taught the next people in the SOC. They taught the next people in the SOC. Yeah. So it became this whole there was something missing in translation from the overall goal of treating this as a cybersecurity role,
Uh-huh.
and it quickly kind of turned into a just do the tickets. Here's the playbooks, and when you get to the step 6 that says escalate, hit escalate. So that whole good intentions, we had good foundation, but it just naturally over the course of time, because we didn't babysit it well enough, or it became this whole like it is a ticket crunching job. So even though we wanted to avoid alert fatigue at the
Right.
first, it became really process fatigue, I guess, because the job mentality was I'm a ticket cruncher versus I see this as a cybersecurity whole or career. So that I think is a bigger systemic problem of just starting up something big, getting the ball rolling, and then pushing it and forgetting to go with it.
Yeah, and then that when we found that to be the case, I think this was probably like 9 months into us doing this. It was like, okay, stop what we're doing. Let's revisit. Let's have like training days. Let's talk about why we're doing what we're doing, what this even means, and what value we're providing the business. Because a lot of times security kind of gets in their little rabbit hole, and they go down and they're like, oh yeah, I'm looking at this vulnerability or whatever, but you don't see the big picture of what value you're providing your organization. And when you step back and you're like, I'm helping my company succeed by security events, we haven't been ransomware. Those are always in the news these days. And this is how I'm making my business successful, or being an employee to help my business be successful. Is you got to have that connection, I think, or it means nothing. So
Right on.
Yeah, add that like branding, that communication, that like this is what we're doing, why we're doing it,
part of
why
the big
we're
picture.
doing exactly.
Yeah, that's pretty good. And that definitely, yes, I would say ownership all the way up, because I think NIT, again, I would say this is probably an older mindset, but it has changed a lot. It's almost like, as opposed to being an expense, like we're a cost to a company, we're actually adding value, and seeing management like acknowledge that and say, yeah, that's great, man, because we didn't get ransomware. We didn't lose $10 million an hour. It's been great. Thank you guys for, protecting us. And then that's another thing is, having management in your team give, I guess I would classify you guys actual like security engineers. Let them build what they want to do, because they're going to know the culture and the people better than you. Not that smart business people can make great businesses, but let the people who love it build it. And I think that's kind of what I've been hearing for them. That's super exciting to hear.
Yeah, no, I think that sums it up, because again, that takes it from the idea of not just ticket cruncher, or not just specific individual column of security that you're doing, but it just becomes you as a cybersecurity person. Like, you are just interested in it as a whole, and you want it all to be better for the greater good. Because you're right. I mean, we don't provide a dollar value. I'm not in sales. I'm not making money. And they only think about us when somebody else, hopefully a competitor, hopefully not, is in the news for something. And it's like, oh my gosh, I'm kind of glad we have these people and pay them money. So unfortunately, that's the only way to sometimes judge value for higher up. And I know, depending upon the organization, that may be some of it. If you don't have that foundation that we've luckily been entertained to, or enchanted to, is that you kind of have to do a little bit of that, I hate it on speaking work of being that researcher to say, hey, look, if we don't have a program that is a 24/7 SOC, or we don't have things like that, then this could be us. Here's the news article. This could be us.
It's our best marketing is the news, by the way, for
It is.
cybersecurity.
Yes.
Every day,
agree.
ransomware, just push that out. So
Yeah.
that's been good.
It's always been like, for me, cybersecurity's always struck me as one of those places where, like, if it's working, you don't hear about it.
Exactly.
You only hear about it when something breaks.
Yep.
Yes.
Absolutely right. We have taken the stance of making sure that what we're doing and what the cool stuff we're doing becomes known to the organization. So internally, we kind of do, we call them town halls and things like that. So we champion, hey, Susie did this really cool thing, or found this really cool vulnerability, or whatever it may be, and this is what we did, and this is how we did it, and kind of champion, like, look at this awesome work we did and how we did it. And I think that kind of helps shed some light on it, where obviously we don't do that externally, but within the business we're like sharing, hey, look at all this cool stuff we're doing and how we're able to provide value, versus like, oh yeah, we're keeping the lights on. So
Not in the news yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It provides excitement for us as the team, because we got mentioned outside of our little tiny room.
Yeah.
But it also provides, for the company as well, being like, oh,
Yeah.
cool. And then that's once again kind of that circular hiring pool of like, oh man, security did something cool. I'm over here in desktops or systems or whatever. That sounds pretty cool. Let's do they have any job openings kind of thing? Because we're all for pretty blessed to have that culture of like, if you've been at the company for a bit and you see another internal opening, we open those up before we open them externally. Absolutely. If you got the chance, interview for that position. You're not just stuck in one place.
That's great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we'll step in front of you here, Teddy. Sorry.
Go for it.
Kind of at the end, on our last wrap up, anything else that we may have missed that you guys want to talk about? I know we did cover. If we did, that's fine. Or kind of last words, even advice to cybersecurity engineers for our audience. Any of that would be great.
Yeah.
Just a couple things. Just make sure what you do, you're not digging yourself in a rut. Make it fun, and make your coworkers have fun. Don't make them have fun, but encourage them to have fun doing whatever it is they're doing. So whether that's taking an hour out of your week to do a little bit of purple team or red team or something you don't do in your normal day-to-day tasks, make it fun. Try something new every once in a while, and that's what keeps the excitement going. And I think that's 100% why we've been successful, what we've been able to do.
Yeah, I think to piggyback off that, I think that's exactly right. To try, because again, IT, as we kind of talked about earlier, security, it's a huge swath of space, a lot to be enticed to, a lot to entertain, and if you get stuck in a certain rut, then you miss out on some stuff. Not just excitement level, but just value you can bring to a company, to yourself, to your buddies. So, I think that bringing it back to the SOC, that's kind of the deal, right? We've kind of put them, at least that I've known, we put them in a box that's underneath every other security role. They're the intro job. If anybody had worked in the SOC previously and they've elevated to another role, they always talk about it almost in a not demeaning, but like a lesser than role. Oh, my days in the SOC, man, I got out of them, all this good stuff. But I think that so we've built that culture ourselves. I think as security analysts, overall global, that this is a lesser role. It's intro. You just need to get out of it. Just put your time in. But it's could definitely still be just alongside every other of those roles that you mentioned: endpoint security, risk and compliance. It's still equal and necessary if you view it as such. So I think getting out of that, breaking those silos, treating it as an equal, would really see, and it will empower a SOC, see them grow if they see themselves as value producing members and not just a ticket crunching organization where they have to work nights and vampire shifts and they just need to please just promote me.
Yeah. No, that's great. Well said.
Yeah, no, that's all I had. So thank you guys so much for being on the episode. I appreciate you stopping by and giving us your time.
Thank you guys. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us.
Yeah.
Cool.
Want more Secure AF? Find us on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you listen to your podcasts. Episodes come out every other Thursday, and if you're interested in viewing the video, you can find it on our YouTube as well as secureafpodcast.com.